when you read Joshua 10, this is what you get. An enemy is poised to attack Israel, eliciting discouragement, fear, and entreaties to YHWH. YHWH exhorts the Israelites not to fear but to trust him instead. He then leads them into battle, miraculously ensuring their victory over their enemies. The enemy forces are discouraged or defeated entirely, culminating in a total victory for the Israelites. This overwhelming success can be credited solely to YHWH's miraculous intervention and protection against an immense coalition of oppressors or foes. This is what we see in Joshua 10. Let me read it. And it was as they fled from before Israel and were in the descent of Beth Horon. Look at, I forgot to highlight descent. They were in the descent. Don't forget that word, descent, of Bethron, that YHWH cast down great stones from heaven upon them at Azekah, and they died. There were more who died with the hailstone than whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. Then Joshua spoke to YHWH on the day when YHWH delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel, and he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand still upon Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Joshua? So the sun stood still in the midst of the heaven, and it did not hasten to go down exactly a whole day. And there was there was no day like that before it or after it. And YHWH hearkened to the voice of a man, for YHWH fought for Israel. I'm not tackling verses 12 to 14 today, but please remind me next week. If we want, we'll mention where it's coming from, the ancient Near Eastern, the Assyrian context, or the ancient Near Eastern context, where it's coming from. To let you know, verses 14 says that there was no day like that before it or after it. You cannot say that if you're getting it from the Hittites and then the Assyrians. You cannot make such a statement. We can demonstrate that maybe next week. Okay, but you see clearly that the text tells us how the people died, and it makes sure to say that when YHWH acted, more people were killed than when they used their hands themselves to kill. So here it is the deity that is doing the destruction, more of the killing than the people. That is what is called holy war in the ancient Near Eastern context, is when the deity fights for the people. So the author is using, like Madame Pamela said, the model, like I said, the stereotype model that is there that the other great nation civilizations used. They're using that to craft this narrative that necessarily did not happen. So if you're in the Asian Near East and you're reading it, it's familiar to you. You're not asking historical questions as we are asking, but everybody wrote almost this way. We thought that the biblical text stood alone, was unique than the rest, but it's actually amongst the rest, a younger version of the rest. When we go to the Hittites, the 10-year annals of Mursili. Mursili was the king of the Hittites. This is what we read. So I marched, and as I arrived at Mount Lawasa, the mighty storm god, my lord, showed his godly miracle. He hurled a meteor, like a meteorite. My army saw the meteor, and the land of Asawa saw it. And the meteor went and struck the land of Asawa. It struck Apasa, the capital city, fell on his knees and became ill. When Uhaziti became ill, he did not come against me to fight, but he sent his son Piyamakal together with troops and charioteers to engage me. He took his stand to fight with me at the river Astapa at Walma, and I, my son, S-U-N, fought with him. The goddess of Arena, my lady, the mighty storm god, my lord, Mezula, and all the gods ran before me. Holy war. Now you see, the deities are running before this Hittite king. And I conquered Piyamakal, the son of Uhaziti, together with his troops and charioteers, and I defeated him. Then I pursued him, and I entered into the land of Azawa. I entered into Apasa, into the capital city. And Hahuziti could not withstand me. He fled before me, and he went across the sea by ships. And he remained there. The whole country of Azawa fled, and certain of the inhabitants went to the mountains of Arinada, and they occupied Mount Arinada. But certain others of the inhabitants went forward to Punrada, and they occupied Punrada. There's a reason why I'm reading everything. And certain other inhabitants went across the sea with Huhaziti. Then I, my son, S-U-N, went after the inhabitants to Mount Arinada, and I fought them at Mount Arinanda. The sun goddess of Arenia, my lady, the mighty storm god, my lord, Mezula, and all the gods ran before me. Again, he says, saying, the first conquest they ran before him, the second one they ran before him. Thus I conquered Mount Arinada. We're almost there. And those of the inhabitants which I, my son, S-U-N, brought into the royal palace were 15,500 people. And those of the inhabitants which the generals of Hattusa, the troops and the charioteers brought home, the number does not exist, meaning that there were too many to count. Finally, I sent forth the captive inhabitants of Hatasu, and they brought them forth. When I had conquered Mount Arinanda, I then came again to the river Astapa. I pitched camp at the river Astapa, and I celebrated the New Year festival there. And I did all this in 1 year, meaning in one campaign, he did all this. I'm going to compare what we've just read to Joshua 10. What do we see? Just as Mursili and his army arrived, the storm god sent his miracle, and there is confusion and discouragement among the enemy. What do we see in Joshua? Joshua and his army march and come upon the Amorites suddenly, and YHWH throws them into confusion, and there is great victory. Just as the storm god hurled his stones, YHWH does the same. Just as the storm god Meteor killed the people of Azawa, YHWH killed many Amorites. Just as Mursili fights a great field battle and then pursues the enemy, Joshua fights a great field battle and then also pursues the enemy. Just as Mursili conquered the entire region of Asawa in one campaign, Joshua conquered the entire region in one campaign. So you would see that the similarities between the text of Joshua and that one of Mursili is not far-fetched. Why is it there? Why are there similarities? It is due to a common ancient Near Eastern transmission code. The text of Joshua and Mursili have remarkable similarities, indicating a shared ancient Near Eastern transmission code. There was a belief in national deities capable of fighting on behalf of their people, potentially using natural phenomenon as part of this effort. This is from the Hittites. Now you move to the Assyrians, our interest, and we have Sargon's letter to the god. What does he tell us?